Have you ever wondered what it's like to be a creative type? To share your work with the world around you, especially to have it widely known? It can be a great feeling as long as you don't let the notoriety inflate your ego. I, personally, love reading the feedback I get from anything I've made once it's released, and it's been an honor meeting some of you at conventions. But like all things in life, it can have its drawbacks that you need to be prepared for if you're going to share your talent with the world. And I can't think of a story that conveys this as well as they did in Fame and Misfortune. We should also remind ourselves of what happened from Spice Up Your Life, that you should create for the sole purpose of expressing your talents to better the world around you. That success is relative to those who your efforts manage to help, and that corrupting what you create for the sake of mass appeal is ultimately harmful to yourself and what you set out to accomplish. With that known, you must keep in mind that if you plan to release your creativity to the world, it's extremely unwise to not be at peace with the possibility of what we saw in Fame and Misfortune, especially if you're successful. Like Twilight saw with the Cutie Mark Crusaders, people are going to piggyback off of your work for their own notoriety. Like Rarity saw at the cafe, people are going to nitpick your work. Like Pinkie Pie experienced, people will latch onto one aspect of what you made and suck all of its depth out for memes. Like we saw with Fluttershy, people will try to insert themselves into your work, and like Rainbow Dash and Applejack experienced, you may garner attention you didn't want in your daily life. It gets worse still. Like we saw through the rest of the episode, we can know that people are going to misinterpret your message and twist it to suit themselves. People will find any reason they can to criticize your work, your message, and you as a person. They'll pressure you to change your work. They'll pressure you to change yourself. And there's nothing you can do about it. In fact, anything you try to do about it will only make the situation worse. You'll end up combining all of the worst parts of Death of the Author, where your intentions hold no bearing on the public's interpretation of it, and the Streisand effect, where attempting to deflect attention away from something will inevitably draw more attention to that very thing. Regardless of how pure or impure your motivations were, you'll end up turning yourself into the villain. But it's not for these people that you should express your creativity. Just like we saw in Spice Up Your Life, there are those for which our works will resonate. Or more currently, like Coconut Cream and Tularula, the two friends whose conflicts were resolved, future conflicts avoided, and friendships strengthened through the journal. It's for those in the world that we can help through what we create that makes all of the downsides worthwhile. For all of the other artists out there, you can take away much of the same if you choose to. Eventually, if you choose to carry on, all of those harsh criticisms will wash away. And even if they're still there, you won't notice them. Their critiques cannot hurt you. If anything, by knowing how to sift through even the harshest, most malicious criticisms, you can still find nuggets to make yourself and your work even stronger. While that is the responsibility of the author, the inverse responsibility that we have as an audience resides in the same vein. Death of the Author is a commonly held philosophy when it comes to interpreting art. But I wholeheartedly disagree with that philosophy and believe that the author's intention should play a big role in how we interpret their work. I stand by that it's fair game that we can deduce if a piece's message is successfully conveyed, but if something can mean anything once it's put out into the world, then everything means nothing, and subjectivity on that level only leads to chaos. Instead, we should seek to understand each other as author and audience alike, and use that to broaden our worldview, and give the author a chance to improve so that the next piece is even better and brings more positivity than the last. And while it is the responsibility of the author to make peace with the fact that they may breed cringy, lazy, entitled fanatics who would rather destroy and control others' work than put in the effort to create something to express themselves, it's our responsibility as the audience to not become that, and to discourage that behavior as a unified community. Fame and Misfortune undoubtedly doubled as an analogy to the brony fandom, and it struck a nerve with many bronies, especially many of the analysts. But in that moment those years ago, I couldn't help but notice that most of the people who were offended were the people who tended to perpetuate these stereotypes. In a twist of irony that I find hilarious, we ended up almost perfectly recreating every aspect of this episode in real life between ourselves and the writing staff. Even down to Mitch Larson claiming that Fame and Misfortune's plot was more so dictated to him rather than him writing it himself, that he doesn't view bronies in this light, but more in the wholesome metaphors that he wrote into Slice of Life. And regardless of where we fall on the spectrum of author and audience, it is our responsibility to be introspective and do our best to avoid the pitfalls of either side. And I can still choose to take the lesson of the episode for what it is, discarding the attack on my fandom. That being said, thank you, Mr. Larson, for writing this episode and all others that you've worked on. You are an inspiration to myself and many others. I'm sorry you were put in such a position that, from an outsider's perspective, appears to be Hasbro's scapegoat. I hope you can take away the same lesson that you wrote into the episode for yourself and use it for encouragement, and I wish you much more success in life. I would also like to share some of my personal experience to help back up these points. Such as when I started making YouTube videos, I tried to observe and avoid the common points and mistakes made by other content creators as they dealt with their large audiences. Additionally, knowing that I am a Christian and that most of my political views lean center-right, I would definitely go against the grain of most people on the internet. I went into YouTube expecting to have no views, comments, or subscribers, and should I get any feedback at all, it would likely be harsh and hateful. I was very lucky when this turned out to mostly not be the case. But it also could have been that because I was at peace with these things, that I was able to discard my ego and avoid attracting an egotistical audience in the first place. As I went on creating, I always tried my best to improve. However, being self-taught, I often did not know how I could improve. I relied on that harsh feedback to give me clues. I remember one comment telling me in a very derogatory fashion that I had a bad microphone and audio quality. I could have very easily chosen to see that comment as an attack. Instead, I started learning about audio processing and did the best I could to make my built-in laptop microphone on a 2011 MacBook Pro sound as good as possible. I still don't know if my audio is any good. But while I get a great deal of satisfaction from the creative process itself, the feedback I get, and the amazing friends I've made along the way, it all reaches a new level when I meet those in person whom my work has helped. The most notable example that always comes to mind was in 2016 at the Grand Brony Gala, when one of my viewers gifted me an Applejack dog tag necklace as thanks for advice he'd taken from Moral of the Story videos to help improve his life and reconnect with his family. If that man happens to be listening, I want you to know first and foremost that it was you and your actions alone which helped you improve. I only gave you the ideas. Regardless, if you believe that it was I who helped you, I am simultaneously humbled and honored to have done so. And even if that had been the only feedback I'd ever gotten since December of 2012, or if every other comment I'd gotten since then had brought me down, then I have done my job as an artist and a messenger, and I am grateful for the opportunity. At the end of the episode, everyone learned that despite their flaws, they all have a God-given talent for the purpose of bettering the world around them, and to disregard the infighting and those who would seek to tear down what you create simply because it was not made for them or simply because they choose to not look outside of their own narrow worldview. If the main six can realize that, and the writing staff had realized that, and I can realize that, then I know that we can all do the same. And that's the moral of the story. If you have any comments, critiques, or suggestions, you can send me a message by following BronyBuck on Tumblr or sending an email to bronydebates@gmail.com. This video was supported by all of my generous backers on Patreon, especially Princess Heather Blossom, Kyle Christensen, Shady Oak Ministries, Stephen A. Wilson, Emerald Spencer, Pony Cordero, Morningstar, Rein-Kun, DJ Skywalker, Sodden Girder, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Senko, QFlash, Billy Henline, Alden McManx, and Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series. Be sure to check out all of their content links in the description. You can also see how you can join them in supporting my channel and what you would get in return. Have a great day, and I look forward to hearing from all of you soon.